Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub. I am here today with Matt. He works for Compass Mark. They are the leading organization around Lancaster County that talks about science-based recovery, addiction issues, that kind of stuff, and they're absolutely phenomenal. They do a lot of work in schools, they do a lot of work in other community organizations, and we're thrilled to have him here. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Oh, good. You can
Awesome.
see it's a lovely day where Matt is,
It
and
is.
he's outside on his porch, which is, I think, where I will be as soon as we're done with this.
It is
Um,
a little bit muggy this morning, but it's definitely better than a lot of rain.
that's true, absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about risk and resiliency. So before you turn this off and move on to a different video, don't do that. This is something that Matt and I have talked about this, and this is something that we're encouraging you to do as a family, as a whole group, to bring people into this and to talk about how it all fits in your family. So I'm going to give
Mhm.
all the stuff to Matt, and we'll just talk about stuff as we go. All right, Matt, get us into this because I got to know some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my role with Compass Mark, my title is prevention coordinator. So I do a lot of work in the schools, coordinating our in-school facilitation, and a lot of our in-school and community-based prevention curriculum and programs are around this idea of building resiliency and skills for students and our community members so that they can be put in a position for success and to live a life free of addiction. That's really what our mission ultimately is. And when you think of resiliency, I think that you can kind of think of a couple of different ways, but the way that I kind of communicate resiliency to the students that I work with is think of like a rubber band. It can be stretched and pulled in all different directions, but it always bounces back to its original form. And so we all, especially now, right? So we're all quarantined, or we have been quarantined for several months now. And so we're going through a difficult period. We may all have individual struggles that are specific to us, whether it be mental health issues, maybe family life, whatever it is. But if we have this skill or this character of resiliency, we're going to bounce back and we're going to overcome, and we're going to be better than ever when we get through this time. One of Compass Mark's values that we hold on to dearly is resilient. We value the inherent potential that exists in every person and community, recognizing that the past does not determine their future. So along with my role with developing relationships within schools, I also run our Skills for Life program, which is an adjudicated program for adolescents and young adults who have been caught underage drinking or have a drug charge or paraphernalia charge or something like that. They're given the opportunity to come through my program and gain skills and education to make appropriate choices moving forward. And really the essence of that program is resiliency. So that's why I'm really passionate about this particular topic. It's inevitable that it seems like every hour that I'm meeting with my students, I'm speaking to this sense that whatever circumstances that got you into this program, they don't define who you are as a person now, and they certainly don't have to define you who you're going to be in the future. Um, Go ahead.
I was going to say that's really important words to live by because no matter who we are, we will make a mistake.
Yeah.
And if we got defined by every mistake that we made, we we would be basket cases. It would be horrible.
I
So
wouldn't be here talking to you on the sports swing right now.
right, absolutely.
Mhm.
So having kids realize that and then truly re-saying those same words to adults is very
Mhm.
helpful.
Sure, sure. Absolutely. And one of the activities that we do that really drives this notion home is our risk and resiliency tree activity, which you had referred to at the beginning, that this could be a whole family activity, not just putting all the focus on the child and having them do it, but also the parents doing one as well, to kind of show that maybe there's more similarities of upbringing than they may have previously thought, and also mistakes and obstacles that the parents have overcome. They can then use those as lessons and talking points for their children, and let them know that they're not alone. They're going to make mistakes, and I think it's important that we can have those conversations with our children, that even when we make mistakes, we still love you, we still care about you, we still want to see the best for you, but this is how you then do better the next time. And so I just want to share some the activity consists of answering 7 questions, and should I share my screen
Yeah, let's do
and show
that.
that? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So the 7 questions are: what are some risk and protective factors that were present in your life as you were growing up, even before you were born, such as your neighborhood, your family structure, etc.? So before we even start this particular activity in my program, we have a conversation about risk and protective factors. And that's something that I haven't even touched on yet, because that's really what determines what or how resilient we ultimately can be. We all have a series of risk factors present in our lives, whether we can control them or not. We can't control the family that we were born into. We can't necessarily control the neighborhood that we're living in. We can't necessarily control our genetics, right? And so finding protective factors. So protective factors help to build our resiliency. Risk factors are going to prevent us from being as resilient as we could be. And thinking of it like as a tipping scale. We all have this tipping scale that some tip in the favor of risk factors, some tip in the favor of protective factors, and some are kind of just balanced. And balance is good, because protective factors can counteract the effects that risk factors have on us. So just because you have risk factors in your life does not mean that you're doomed and that you're not going to be resilient and that you're not going to be successful. But identifying the protective factors that help to counteract those risk factors are really important. And I'm just going to list a couple of risk factors just to be aware of. And there's a whole slew of risk factors. But mental health issues, if you're dealing with mental health, that obviously can be a risk factor and prevent you from being resilient, prevent you from being able to overcome. But we know that a protective factor that can counteract that is counseling, or having a strong support system, or taking prescribed medications that can help balance out the chemicals in your brain, whatever it might be, right? So that's just an example of how a risk factor can be counterbalanced with a protective factor, or a series of protective factors.
So as a family is going through this, they're looking at, okay, and they're talking about this together, like, what are our roots?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What keeps us grounded? What are the parts of us in our family, whether it's you're talking about it as yourself individually or your family as a whole, right? What are the roots that keep us together, and what are the things that have not gone so well in that section, right? So like,
Exactly.
maybe you live in a neighborhood that you don't particularly like, and that could be because there might be just issues there.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a risk, but then you could talk about, but then your family is really strong together, so that could help be one of those protective factors.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
And
So this,
yeah.
I see how this is going to work. Perfect.
Yeah. And not only can the family be a good unit for each other. But then if they are living in a neighborhood that's not so great, they could even be a beacon of resiliency for their community and for their neighborhood as well. Um, so like the roots is like I could have grown up in a really rough neighborhood or family structure, and as an adult, that still sticks with me. That has still been my roots for a considerable amount of my life. But now, how do I grow from that, and how do I kind of come out of the ground and thrive? Right.
Awesome.
I have my coffee mug here today. It says flourish. So I thought it was appropriate for this conversation.
Absolutely. Well,
Um,
once you've got your roots in place and
mhm.
you're talking about that as your part of your family, then you have a trunk.
Yeah, you have a trunk and you have personal values. You have beliefs that are important to you or a code that you might live by. And when I'm explaining that particular notion of a code that you might live by, I always use the generic YOLO, like you only live once. So what are you going to do with it? Or what are your personal values? What are the beliefs that your family holds on to? I already mentioned one of Compass Mark's values of being resilient. So what are some things that are important to you? Maybe it's a favorite music lyric that just really resonates with you and provides you with motivation to persevere, or something like that. So just list a couple of those ideas that you as a family unit or just as an individual hold on to be really important to you. Um, and then you got branches, you got support system, and I already mentioned support system is one of the most crucial protective factors that you can have, because no matter what we're going through in life, we need other people. We might be having the greatest season of life, but um, without sharing it with other people, it's not going to be as enjoyable. It's not going to be as purposeful. um, and if we're going through a really crappy season in life, we need other people to help, to lean on and to bounce back and overcome.
Yeah, I think talking about the branches, even talking about them with other people is helpful because you know how you might not identify someone as a support system, but if you're talking to somebody else, they would say, well, of course,
Mm-hmm.
this person is totally in your life as a support system because they do this. And you might think, oh, I never thought about them in that way.
Yeah,
So that's why that I think that one is a really helpful way to like talk about it with other people. I mean,
for
kids
sure.
could say to their parents, yeah, but what about this person? What about this colleague that you work with, mom? Or what about this guy down the street who always helps us with the stuff? So like
Right.
that could be a really interesting conversation to have
Yeah.
because and branches are, and you have this in there, it's just the people in your life, it doesn't have to be your relatives.
Right. Right. Exactly. The teacher that you see every day in homeroom, or the principal who walks down the hall and says hi to you. Um, Guidance counselors, whether you take advantage of meeting with your guidance counselors or not, they're in place in schools with a purpose, and with the invested interest in the well-being of every student in that school. And so whether you have personal interaction with them or not, they're a protective factor because they're there. They're present in your environment.
Yeah, so we are certainly building this tree. We've got our roots, our risks and protective factors. We've got the trunk, which is our personal values. We've got our support system as the branches. Uh-oh, here we go. We've got
Now,
thorns.
now we got some thorns.
All
And
right.
when I'm giving instructions for this activity, I always get the question, well, trees don't have thorns. Where am I supposed to put the thorns? And I say, well, this is an imaginary tree.
That's right.
It doesn't
And
have to
some
be
trees do have
realistic.
thorns.
And yeah, we did a Google search and we did find out that there is a tree that does have thorns.
Yeah.
um, but what's cool about this activity is that it allows the students and family members to be as creative as they wish. So I have some students draw just giant thorns on the side of their trunks. Some draw vines that have thorns along up the tree. Um, as you'll see at the very bottom there, it says flowers. So some people get to kill two birds with one stone, and draw a rose bush, which has thorns and flowers, right? And so the thorns in life are some additional risk factors in your life, both past and present, that may have caused problems or have the potential to cause problems or complications. And that goes back to what we were speaking to earlier about mistakes that we make in life. We all make mistakes. We all experience things that we may or may not regret, depending on what your perspective is. But at the same time, they're there, and it's important to acknowledge them, because if we don't acknowledge the risk factors, if we don't acknowledge the mistakes that we made, we're not going to know how to do better the next time.
Right.
So if we think that the negative things that we're doing is right, then we're not going. It's tough to kind of overcome that whole situation.
Yeah, and I think that when you're thinking about those risk factors, whether you have a lot or you have two doesn't matter. It's how you're managing what those risk factors are.
Right.
You could have two, but they could be ginormous risk factors. So therefore, you gotta think about those differently than you would if, in another context. All right, I got thorns and we're managing it. So now I've got fruit.
We have fruit. We all have accomplishments, whether they're big or small. And it's important to acknowledge those so that we can start to really allow ourselves to focus on the positive things and create a positive thought and behavior loop. The more positive thoughts we have, the more positive behaviors we're going to engage in. And so recognizing I got to high school, that's an accomplishment. Not everybody gets to high school, and not everybody gets to high school without at least being set back a grade or something like that, right? So just acknowledging that that's a really great thing. Graduation from high school, that's awesome. Getting your driver's license, getting your first job, creating a family, whatever your accomplishments are.
Passing a test you never thought you were going to pass.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
And for parents, the same thing. It doesn't mean that you have to become the president of your company.
Right.
It could mean you did a great job on something.
Yeah.
Or you cooked a fabulous meal that you'd never tried before. Or you were really successful at having the plants live a whole other year in your house rather than killing them.
Oh my gosh. My wife is the worst with that. We cannot have indoor plants. Although they are lovely to have, we just cannot have them. So that is
I realized I think I used to think I had a green thumb, and then I realized, I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't.
It's a thing.
Right, so that might not be a thorn, but I would just not put that on there. But you're right. You can find accomplishments and things to praise and be excited about yourself in 100 different ways. They don't have to be stereotypical. You have to look and find them. And I think you're right. This is also one of those things like your branches that other people can help you out with that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's cool. All right. And then there's flowers. Oh, I love this.
Flowers bloom as a symbol for hope. And in this activity, they identify your dreams, goals, and aspirations. Again, focusing on those positive things that you hope for your future. And again, they don't have to be big dreams that you have. It could be a small dream of getting a job or getting a raise or working hard to get an A in a particular class or whatever it might be. Just identifying a few dreams and goals and aspirations you have for your future allows for you to focus on those positive things and creates purpose, and creates this sense of I am living my life to the fullest in order to fulfill the things that are important to me. And so, I mean, I always get the answers of I want to be a millionaire and all that kind of stuff with this activity. But then, like, how are you going to be a millionaire? What are some goals that you're going to set for yourself to put yourself in the position, because you're just not going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm going to go sit out and I'm going to make $1 million today. I wish, but and if your tree is a money tree, then that's great.
Congratulations.
Right. And yeah, so that this kind of, after they draw their trees, so they're going to draw their roots. You're going to draw all the pieces to this tree. You're going to draw the roots, you're going to draw the trunk, you're going to draw branches off the trunk, you're going to draw thorns, however you want to draw the thorns. Whatever fruit you pick, it could be a combination of the fruits, it could be a banana, apple, cherry tree for all I care. Wherever you want to put the flowers, whether they're on the tree or on the ground. Then they share their trees. And I think it's just really impactful for them to take ownership of where they see themselves have coming from, where they see themselves now, where they see themselves going in the future, to kind of share that with other people who they're not necessarily overly comfortable with. They just met them like hours ago. And also it's a really good creative representation for, again, whatever got you here does not define who you are as a person now, does not define who you're going to be in your future. Acknowledging their accomplishments that they already had, acknowledge the dreams, goals, and aspirations for them to focus on. And my overall goal for any interaction that I have with a student, or really anyone in the community, is I want to see them put themselves in a position for success, to succeed in whatever way that looks like for them. Success for one person might be making $1 million. Success for another person might be raising a healthy, happy family, or just getting their dream job, whatever it might be. I want to see that for them, and I want to provide them with the ability and resiliency skills to be able to do that for themselves.
I gotta say, this looks like a perfect after dinner activity for a family.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I mean,
again,
it's fun. It's not weird. I think sometimes for some people, they'll be like, I don't know if we could do this, but this is very accessible. You can talk about it. It's good. This is really, really wonderful.
Yeah. And I agree that sometimes these conversations can be weird or awkward, but it creates a platform to have this conversation with your children, and talk about whether drugs and alcohol and addiction have been risk factors or thorns in your life, whether it's genetics, and that's an important conversation to have, because if diabetes or heart disease ran in our family, we would have conversation with our kids that is a genetic factor, so we need to be aware of the things that we are engaging in. So if addiction runs in the family, let's have that conversation. Just let them know that this is a risk factor. It does not mean that you're destined to have an addiction. It does not mean that you're destined to fail or to anything negative. It just means that this is something that you need to be aware of so that you can counterbalance it with some protective factors.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Of course.
I hope that people who watch this share their successes with us.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, I can't wait. So we are going to talk to you again next week about another topic, which will remain secret.
Yes, because neither of us can remember what it is.
That sounds wonderful. All right, this is perfect. Thank you very much, Matt. I think I can just stop it from here. You don't have to stop sharing your screen. Okay. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you again next week, all right?
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Kelly.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.